Introduce Lynn Zook to you. She's a longtime Las Vegas resident. She's an author and historian on casinos, and she's going to share with you some great stories about things that she's come across. So here you are.
Thank you. This will be a really cursory overview of the first 10 hotels that we're going to talk about. The more in-depth is, of course, in the book, which I've got a limited number left, and I can sign at the end of 20 dollars. Sign the book, and I'll throw in the DVD. So, on that happy note, let's get started. Oh, and by the way, I'm old, so I've got notes. I can't keep it all in my head. I used to be able to, but not anymore. The Paradise Club opened on Old Highway 91 in 1930. Old Highway 91 was the main artery to Southern California, and Frank and Angelina Dietrich thought it would be a good place for a restaurant. Frank was rumored to have connections to Al Capone. Angelina designed the tablecloths and the recipes based on old home cooking from the old country. As this was during Prohibition, rumor long had it that there was a still out behind the quail coop. In addition to the good food, they offered a speakeasy, so the rumors of the still must have been true, and illegal gaming. The place was a smash. In 1931, gaming became legal in Nevada. A mile south down the highway was a roadhouse, the Red Rooster. While Dietrich's hoped to obtain the first gaming license, that privilege went to Alice Morris, the owner of the Red Rooster. The Red Rooster was known for its speakeasy, and it wasn't long before the Justice Department shut the place down for illegal alcohol. Imagine that. Alice quickly complied, and the Red Rooster reopened. 2 years later, the Red Rooster burned to the ground due to a kitchen fire. Luckily, Morris was insured and rebuilt the place as a dance hall, gambling place. It continued to do good business. In 1947, Grace Hayes, a star of stage and screen, bought the Red Rooster and renamed it the Grace Hayes Lodge. She built a series of bungalows for overnight guests, and Benjamin Siegel and Howard Hughes were reportedly regular customers. Hayes sold the property in 1953 as the Las Vegas Strip was beginning to grow. The El Rancho Vegas. Hotelier Tommy Hall was looking to expand his empire from Southern California. He became friendly with Big Jim Cashman. Those stories you heard about him, his car breaking down and he counting cars out there on Old Highway 91, that's a myth. Big Jim Cashman was a local businessman and a civic booster extraordinaire. Big Jim wanted Hull to build his new hotel on Fremont Street, but costs per acre were pretty pricey, as you can imagine, being Fremont Street. Hull looked to the county where the land was cheaper. He found a plot of land on the corner of San Francisco Street and the highway. Today we know it better as Sahara Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard South. He bought 66 acres from Jesse Hunt for $150 per acre. Those were the days. Yeah. And he began to build his dream hotel. It opened in 1941. Hull envisioned an oasis that would invite weary travelers off the highway and into his hotel casino showroom. The trip from Southern California in those days, with no air conditioning and radiator bags, took hours by car. With its inviting pool and green lawns, the El Rancho Vegas looked like a veritable oasis. Guests were whisked to their rooms in a little cart. It also became known for celebrity weddings. Joanne Woodward married Paul Newman. Unfortunately, the first hotel on the Strip suffered a major fire on June 17, 1960, and burned to the ground. Only the outer bungalows remain. The Hotel Last Frontier. In 1941, a wealthy theater magnate, R.E. Griffiths, and his nephew, architect William Moore, were passing through Las Vegas on their way to Southern California to buy building materials for a new hotel. They were planning in Deming, New Mexico. They never made it back to Deming, New Mexico. They bought the old Paradise Club from now owner Guy McAfee, and along with 35 acres of prime highway property, they bought the property, figuring it would be one of the first ones seen by travelers coming up the road. They had high hopes. William Moore designed the buildings. It was to be a Western-style oasis with a pool right out in front of the highway. So as you drove by, you saw that pool, and you're sitting in that hot, sweaty car, and you're thinking, I want to go there. Unfortunately, the country had entered World War II, and rationing was now the rule of the land. Griffiths and his nephew got very ingenious. They bought old mines up in the northern part of the state for the copper wiring. They also bought a dairy farm out in the Milwaukee Valley so the guests would have fresh milk, eggs, and meat. The hotel opened on October 30th, 1942. To a bustling crowd. They extended the early West in modern splendor to the interiors of the building. No expense within reason was spared. To get guests to and from nearby McCarran Airport, they bought stagecoaches. Everything was designed with the tourist in mind. In addition to the gaming and entertainment, they built a Western village that included a running train and games for the kids. Think Frontierland before Disneyland. In 1951, William Moore decided he needed a change and decided to sell the Hotel Last Frontier. Jake Kasloff, Belden Kettleman, and Guy McAfee bought the property for $5.5 million. The new owners sensed that America's tastes were changing and decided that property needed a facelift. Gone was the early West in modern splendor, and instead became the new frontier, out of this world. Instead of closing the hotel, they built the new frontier just north of the original property. The inviting lawn of the Hotel Last Frontier was paved over for a parking lot, because it really is the Vegas way. The pool was moved to the back of the property. In 1960, the IRS seized the money from the Hotel Last Frontier and the New Frontier for unpaid taxes. The hotel came under the control of Bankers Life Insurance Company. The president of Bankers Life wanted the original buildings torn down, and so construction began on a new 500-room hotel. The new hotel was built on the footprint of the original Hotel Last Frontier. In 1967, Howard Hughes made an offer of $14 million to buy the new hotel, along with the adjacent Silver Slipper. The sale went through in October No, I'm sorry, the sale went through. In October 1997, Phil Ruffin bought the property, and despite various pie-in-the-sky ideas for renovating the property, none of them took hold, and in July 2007, the hotel was closed for good. The hotel and surrounding buildings were imploded on November 13, 2007. The sad saga of the hotel finally came to an end. As we talked about last year, Billy Wilkerson was brains behind the original Flamingo Hotel. He and his friends liked the idea of building a hotel in Las Vegas where he could invite the Hollywood crowd to come. And it wouldn't be a folksy Western-themed place like the Hotel Last Frontier and the El Rancho. It would be a classy joint like his nightclubs in Hollywood. All he needed was more money. He decided to play craps and win the money he needed. Unfortunately, Lady Luck was not riding with Billy Wilkerson that night. He crapped out. Benjamin Siegel was a two-bit hood with Hollywood dreams and a sense of publicity. He and his silent partners approached Billy Wilkerson about a deal. They would put up the money to finish his dream hotel. He and Wilkerson were friendly, so the deal was made. Shortly thereafter, Siegel moved in to take over exclusive control of the property. With Meyer Lansky's blessing, Siegel muscled Wilkerson out, forcing him to give up control of the property and remain only as a shareholder. Wilkerson always considered at least he got out alive. He fled to Paris. Siegel took over overseeing construction. Young Electric Sign Company, Yesco, designed the original facade. The Flamingo opened on December 26, 1946, during a raging thunderstorm. Most of the invited guests declined to travel due to the rain and thunder and lightning. Also, the rooms weren't finished. So the guests who did show up had to stay either at the El Rancho, Vegas, or the Hotel Last Frontier, or downtown. At that point, they took their gambling with them. The casino lost over $300,000 in the first 2 weeks. It closed with a plan to reopen once the rooms were completed in March 1947. The reopening was considered a success, but it wasn't enough to save Benjamin Siegel. His silent partners and other mob investors had had enough. On June 20th, 1947, while sitting in Virginia Hill's house in Beverly Hills, Bugsy Siegel was killed. A few hours later, Gus Greenbaum and Morris Rosen walked into the hotel and seized control under orders from Meyer Lansky and others. In 1952, following the opening of the Sands, the Flamingo spent $1 million in renovations and remodeling. The front got a new mid-century modern redo, and it was a thing of beauty. When word of Siegel's murder hit the newswires, the town of Las Vegas figured prominently in the articles that were written about the mobster hotel owner. It was the kind of advertising that the up-and-coming town needed, and it would reap the benefits for years to come. The fabulous Flamingo was showing a $4 million profit. Wilkerson and Siegel paved the way for others who wanted to build new sophisticated hotels and casinos in what was quickly becoming the hottest strip of property in the world. But in some ways, Siegel had the last laugh. Television newscaster Diane Sawyer a few years ago called him the man who built Las Vegas. which must have been a surprise to the people that had been here before him. Today, various books, magazines, and newspapers all link Siegel to the post-war future of Las Vegas. While Siegel met an untimely death, Billy Wilkerson lived out his life in Los Angeles. No doubt happy to get out with his life. In the summer of 1975, just before Independence Day, a major thunderstorm hit Las Vegas. In a short time, a record rainfall had turned into a flash flood warning. Caesar's Palace across the boulevard from the Flamingo sat in the old Flamingo Wash.
Oh.
With no storm drains or provisions for flash floods, the water came out of the spring mountains and down the wash. It roared through the parking lot of Caesar's Palace and across the boulevard, right into the front doors of the Flamingo Hotel. Patrons were standing in ankle-deep water, but they would not stop gambling. The Flamingo is still going strong. It is one of the last of the original hotels on the Las Vegas Strip. The Thunderbird. The Thunderbird opened on Labor Day 1947. It was built by Marion Hicks and his partner Cliff Jones. Hicks was the owner of the El Cortez downtown and had a reputation for excellence when it came to customer service. The hotel also had neon Thunderbirds announcing the hotel, and at night they were absolutely spectacular. Originally, they used to blow smoke rings, but that got a little pricey real quick, and the smoke rings went away. Over the years, the Thunderbird changed hands a number of times. Marion Hicks had retired to Palm Springs and unfortunately died in 1961. In 1967, the hotel was remodeled and the front facade was redone. At the time, it was the longest freestanding sign when it was built. Special power lines had to be brought in to accommodate the drain on the electrical lines. When it was running, it measured over 700 feet long and included 37,000 sparkling light bulbs and 8 miles of neon tubing. It cost $250,000 and took over 10,000 hours to complete. In 1978, Major Riddle, who owned the Dunes Hotel, bought the Thunderbird and closed it down before rebranding it the Silverbird. No one knows why. It was a few years later that Riddle sold the property to Ed Torres. Torres added mission-style architecture to the front facade. Why? No one quite knows. He also rebranded the hotel the El Rancho, thus creating confusion among tourists and old-timers who still remembered the El Rancho Vegas. Despite its once stellar reputation, the Thunderbird, Silverbird, El Rancho was ultimately sold to Turnberry Associates, who imploded the hotel and buildings on October 30th, 2000. It took over 700 pounds of explosives to bring her down. She did not go willingly. And there we have the El Rancho. Yeah. Wilbur Clark's Desert Inn. Wilbur Clark was an entrepreneur with a great sense of branding and an overabundance of confidence. He dreamed of owning a major resort on the Las Vegas Strip that would cater and offer the best in entertainment. You'll notice we've got a theme going. They all think they've got the best.
Right.
He would call it the Desert Inn after his favorite hotel in Palm Springs. He bought the land in 1945 across from the Hotel Last Frontier. Construction began in 1947 and was halted when Clark ran out of money. Also, a constant theme through a lot of this. As he and his wife Toni watched the Flamingo and the Thunderbird open, Clark realized his dream would not become a reality without some help. He approached Mo Dalitz and a group of investors. They were all from Cleveland and part of the Mayfield Road Gang. Every one of them had bootlegging and gambling experience. Construction resumed in 1949. Clark was determined to have his name attached to the hotel. At the street entrance was an old-fashioned ranch sign that said, Wilbur Clark's Desert Inn. How he got that past Mo, no one knows. The hotel had two openings, one on April 24th, 1950 for special VIP guests, and the next day, April 25th, for the general public. From the beginning, the hotel was a success. Wilbur Clark was forced due to ill health to retire in 1964. He died on August 27th, 1965. On Thanksgiving Eve in 1966, Howard Hughes arrived quietly by a train in Las Vegas. He was transported to the Desert Inn via ambulance. His right-hand man, Robert Mayhew, had made arrangements with Mo Dalitz for Hughes to stay in the 9th floor penthouse. Hughes's entourage took over the 8th floor. Dalitz always claimed that it was with the idea that Hughes would move out in time to accommodate the high rollers that came every year between Christmas and New Year's. As the holidays grew near, Dalitz began getting nervous that Hughes would not leave in time. He told Mayhew it was time for Hughes and his entourage to leave. Mayhew told Hughes, Hughes told Mayhew to buy the hotel. Mo inflated the price to $13.2 million. Hughes went along with it. Unfortunately, Hughes and his group, mostly Mormons, had no experience on how to run a casino. Many of the employees who were loyal to Dalitz remained working at the hotel. Over the next 2 years, Hughes would buy the Silver Slipper, the Frontier, the Castaways, the Landmark, and the Sands. He was attempting to buy the Stardust when the Justice Department stepped in and cited him that he was creating a monopoly and restraint of trade concerns. Hughes left Las Vegas, again on Thanksgiving Eve, in 1970, 4 years after he arrived and changed the face of the Las Vegas Strip forever. He left as quietly and subtly as he had arrived. Despite various owners over the next 20 years, the DI continued to be a place of excellence and customer service par excellence. On April 28, 2000, during its 50th birthday celebration week, Steve Lynn bought the hotel for $270 million as a gift for his wife. On October 23, 2001, the DI was imploded. The Wynn and the Encore now sit on that site. And I wish we still had the Desert Inn. But that's just me. The Sahara began life as the Club Bingo, a 300-seat bingo parlor known for its good food. The owner, Frank Scheibel, was looking for investors. He found one in Milton Prell, a savvy businessman from Butte, Montana. Milton Prell soon realized the future of the Las Vegas Strip was in having a resort hotel that catered to the tourists swarming in from Southern California. The some things never change. That meant the financing and building of a major hotel. That's a beautiful song. The Sahara officially opened on October 7th, 1952. Milton Pearl dubbed the hotel the Jewel of the Desert. And it had camels. Opening night was so successful that the money had to be rushed straight from the cash boxes underneath the tables to the casino cage at a frantic pace so that the guests could continue to cash in their winnings. Must be a nice problem to have. The Congo room was the showroom, which entertainment director Stan Irwin booked with big names. Here we see what looks like an early bachelorette party, enjoying the Congo room drinks and dinner. Grandma on the far right looks like she's having a really good time. In 1964, Irwin arranged for the Beatles to play Las Vegas. He quickly realized that the Sahara showroom was not going to be big enough for the screaming fans of the musicians. He booked the Convention Center Rotunda for the event. The Beatles had expressed an interest in playing Las Vegas. Irwin arranged for them to have a suite at the Sahara Hotel. Once word got out the Sahara was invaded by young girls trying to sneak into the hotel and into their room. The Beatles played 2 shows at the Convention Center. By all accounts, it was sold out, but according to people that were there who told me, you couldn't hear them sing and you couldn't hear the music over the squealing girls. The Beatles, who had hoped to see Las Vegas, only saw the inside of the suite. Whatever they could see from the limo they took to the Convention Center, and back when during the limo ride to and from the airport. That's all they got to see. The Sahara Hotel still anchors the north end of Las Vegas Boulevard South. The Sands, a place in the sun. The Sands Hotel, perhaps more than any other popular resort, came to symbolize the Las Vegas of our collective memory. It was here that the color line for entertainers playing the hotel was finally broken. It was here that Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr., and the rest of the Rat Pack held court in the Coca Room. Glamour and glitz, politicos and powermongers all met in the desert, and it helped propel tourism to this small desert oasis like no other. Jakey Friedman was an oil man from Texas. He had a penchant for Western attire and pretty girls. And Matt Copperfield was his partner, and they wanted to build a new hotel on the burgeoning Las Vegas Strip. They bought the land where LaRue sat and set about to build a resort that would cater to both the high rollers and the Hollywood crowd, because we don't have enough of that going on the Strip. Jakey also brought Jack Entrada west to work at the Sands. Entrada booked the famous Copacabana room back in New York City and had ties to most of the talent that traveled the nightclub circuit back then. Known to his friends as Smiling Jack, he was a mountain of a man at 6'1". But he knew talent and he knew how to negotiate. Under his leadership, the Sands quickly grew to become known as the New York's Copacabana Gone West. Featuring Lena Horne and Noel Coward, he spirited Marlene Dietrich away from the Sahara and Frank Sinatra away from the desert inn. The Sands had deep pockets and was willing to spend top dollar for good performers. The Sands Hotel opened on December 15, 1952. Danny Thomas, singer-songwriter Jenny McHugh, and the Coca Girls, the most beautiful girls in the world, opened the famed Coca Room. Guests were whisked to their rooms by cart. Kind of looks like manned by those Coca Girls themselves. Yeah, right. Jakey hired Al Freeman to be the publicity director. Freeman loved working with the Las Vegas News Bureau photographers, and for one inspired picture, he arranged for the craps table to be put in the pool, mimicking the famed song from the Broadway musical Guys and Dolls about a floating crap game. Photographer Don English took the photo for the News Bureau, and it was published in Life magazine. Al Freeman was even able to bring Robbie the Robot of Forbidden Planet fame to the Sands to play craps. Yes, you have to ask yourself how Robbie gets the dice and his little hooks that he had for fingers. But now you're asking too serious a question. By 1960, Frank Sinatra's production company, Dorchester Productions, agreed to produce a comedy heist film called Ocean's 11. The story involved a group of World War II buddies robbing 5 Las Vegas hotels on New Year's Eve. Sinatra suggested filming on location in Las Vegas. Thus, the Sands became the base camp for the cast and crew at the hotel. For 3 weeks, from January 26th until February 16th, the Rat Pack, as they were known, filmed their scenes during the day, retired to the infamous steam room for a few hours, and then took the stage in the Copa Room for 2 shows nightly. It was known as the Summit at the Sands, and it quickly became the hottest ticket in town. Audiences were never sure who would be taking the stage each night, and if the rest of the Rat Pack would be there as well. And that mystery only added to the excitement. The dinner show was at 8 o'clock, was the tamer of the 2 nightly performances. Though it seemed that they were ad-libbing, in reality, Joey Bishop was writing most of the material. As you can see, they've got cue cards. The bar cart was wheeled onto the stage, and for the next 2 hours, the audience was never sure what would happen. Film footage reveals the 5 popular entertainers at the top of their game. After the dinner show, they would have a break and then take the stage for the more raucous late show. Celebrities poured into town to see the freewheeling, seltzer-spraying shows. It was one of those defining moments in pop culture, and the combination of Las Vegas and the Rat Pack was fused into the country's psyche. They would all play the Copa Room throughout the 1960s as single acts, but the enduring memory remains of all of them on stage during the Summit. Howard Hughes had come to Las Vegas on Thanksgiving Eve, 1966, and by the end of that year had bought the Desert Inn Hotel. On July 22nd, 1967, his offer to buy the Sands Hotel was accepted. For 15 years, the Sands had had the reputation as the best hotel on the famed Las Vegas Strip. Hotel management hoped that no one would notice the change of ownership, and the good times would just keep rolling in. Yeah. On March 11th, 1971, Jack Entrada passed away. He had become the heart and soul of the hotel, and after J.P. Friedman's death, he also passed away. The town was stunned. An era was coming to an end. In 1993, owner Sheldon Adelson announced a series of improvements. Adelson toyed with the idea of bringing the Sands back to its original footprint and building a modern resort. likely one that would attract the Hollywood crowd. Unfortunately, none of those plans for doing that appealed to him. He announced the hotel was closing and would be imploded. The Sands officially closed on June 20th, 1996, and was imploded on November 26th, 1996. An inglorious end to a hotel that encompassed, symbolized Las Vegas. The Royal Nevada. In 1955, 3 hotels would announce their presence on the Las Vegas Strip, and rumors that the Strip was being overbuilt were rampant. First up is the Royal Nevada, which was billed as the showplace of Showtown, USA. Those guys really needed to talk to Will Clark. A crown set upon the top of the pylon at the entrance. From the beginning, the hotel had monetary issues. Imagine that. The crown was designed by the Young Electric Sign Company, also known as Yesco, and was delivered on a truck with a Jane Russell look-alike to ensure that the delivery went smoothly. The show program for the showroom promised royal entertainment, but the budget for entertainment could not compete with their hopes. Oh well. The hotel closed for good in 1958. In 1959, the Stardust bought the property and incorporated the hotel into its Stardust Auditorium. The garden-style rooms and the Olympic-sized pool they became part of the Stardust property. That's why the Stardust always had 2 pools. The Riviera, built as the high-rise with 9 floors. It was also being built in 1955. There was talk that the desert soil could not support the structure. Yeah. It opened the day after the Royal Nevada, with Liberace doing the ribbon-cutting honors. He and his brother George were the headliners in the showroom as well. The original roadside sign and lobby were designed to evoke the mid-century modern trend that was sweeping the country. Everything looked elegant and reeked of money, except the books. From the beginning, the Riviera struggled to make a profit. And here's the lovely lobby. I think it looked like that for a New York minute. In 1964, things were looking up financially for the hotel, and it began an expansion that would cost $12 million. The big reason things were looking up so well for the struggling hotel was a comedian, Shecky Greene. His iconoclastic show brought celebrity and high rollers to the hotel in droves. Shecky had quite the storied career here on the Strip. One time, he got wind that the owner, Ed Torres, was going to change the lounge into a keno parlor, and he got himself an axe and started to take the lounge apart, handing out pieces of the stage to the audience members. Next morning, Ed Torres called to say those plans were off. So they would fire Shecky, and then they would have to hire him back because he brought in the money. In 1969, the hotel was doing well enough that they could afford a new roadside sign. This one designed by Ben Chapman. As the 1970s progressed, the Riviera kept adding more rooms and more towers in hopes of financial security that never really came. In the winter of 2015, the Las Vegas Convention Authority and Visitors Bureau announced that they had bought the Riv. The Las Vegas Convention Center needed to be expanded, and the Riviera was the hotel that was needed for that expansion. The hotel closed May 4th, 2015, and was imploded on June 14th, 2016. The Riv had finally run out of lives. The Dunes. The Dunes was the 10th hotel to open on the famed Las Vegas Strip. Dubbed the Miracle in the Desert, like the Riv and the Royal Nevada, it struggled financially in the beginning. The Sultan, who stood astride the entrance, was 35 feet tall and wore a plum turban. In the middle of the turban sat a jewel that was actually a diamond-cut headlight. Why not? In 1956, the Dunes made headlines all around the country when they signed a contract with Minsky's Burlesque. Minsky's was famous not only for its burlesque queens, but also the stripping acts that the girls performed. The town was up in arms with the Catholic Legion of Decency leading the charge. Bare-breasted women on the stage, we can't have that. Locals were worried that it would encourage the wrong element. Who did they think was running those hotels? The show opened to record attendance, and the Dunes was suddenly very flush with money. The original roadside sign looks very humble compared to today's signs and the signage of the 1960s. A simple leaderboard advertising who was performing. It included an Arabian princess standing on a flying carpet. How she kept her balance, well, I guess that's what her arms being akimbo were for. In 1964, the beloved Chic was removed from the roof and placed in storage. The hotel underwent structural changes as the owners renovated the property to make it more modern. A new sign was ordered. Lee Clay of Federal Sign designed the sign. It was 180 feet tall, and it shot neon into the heavens as the flicker bulbs spelled out Dunes. The sign's foundation was 80 feet wide and contained several miles of neon tubing. It took 3 full-time workers to care for the sign. While the architect of the hotel did not care for the sign, the hotel owner, Major Riddle, wanted a sign that could be seen for miles and was in keeping with the fantasy land that the Strip was becoming. Riddle won that argument. I don't know about you, but I thought that sign would always be there. In 1963, Major Riddle announced that the cast of Casino de Paris was coming to Las Vegas from Paris. The show starred Lynn M and made her an international star. The beloved Chic was brought out of storage in the late 1960s when Interstate 15 was finally completed. He was placed in the back of the Dunes golf course near the exit for the Dunes Road. A sign was added to encourage drivers to exit now for the Dunes. He reigned there until 1985 when an electrical fire in his belly burned him up. Despite the best efforts of the owners over the years, the Dunes closed forever on January 26, 1993, at midnight. Steve Wynn had bought the property for $75 million and was planning his new luxury resort, the Bellagio, to be built on the Dunes property. He envisioned a big party, for the first implosion of a strip hotel property. The demolition included the dune sign, and on October 27, 1993, the demolition began. It took 365 pounds of dynamite to bring the building down, 84 flash bombs, and 281 mortar cannons fueled the fireworks display. Lynn had set the bar very high for hotel implosions to come. The party trend finally faded in the aftermath of 9/11. But a new age of growth and a new way of doing business was being heralded on the famed boulevard. A very loud wake-up call was received by the surviving properties as they began to feel their days were numbered. And they were right. And that concludes my presentation. Especially to all of you. Thank you to the Nevada State Museum, UNLV Special Collections, Bobo Bay, Gary Burke, Joe Rosales, Alan Sandquist, and Pete Hamill. Everybody before Pete Hamill supplied images. Pete Hamill supplied a quote in the book. For that, I will always be grateful. Any questions?
So back to the flamingo. I've heard that the existing flamingo right now contains 0 parts of the original building. Do you know if that's accurate?
That's probably fairly accurate because the Oregon building came down in the late 90s. And that was the last, I believe, the last original building on the property. But new owners always like to do away with any remnant that there was somebody here with an idea before them.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I've got another one, Linda.
Okay.
We're talking with you yesterday. I understand you've got a second book. So this
Yes.
first one went to 1955.
Mm-hmm.
What is the second?
Second book goes from 1956 to the opening of the original MGM Grand Hotel. And that also includes the fire. But that is only available as an ebook, either on iTunes or Amazon. So you have to have an iPad or an Amazon reader to read it. So, anybody else?
I'm just curious why you don't have any of downtown history. That's all strip.
It's all script.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you gonna do one downtown?
I'm thinking about it.
There you go.
If anybody would like a book, I've got a limited number of them. They're $20. I will gladly sign them. And I'll throw in the DVD of video interviews with the men and women who not only worked in the hotels, but were actually here and know what the hell they were talking about. So, anybody wants a book, just come on up. Thank you. Thank you.